Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Tuesday night Energion Hangout. I'm Henry Neufeld, the owner of Energion Publications. Let's invite the Lord to be with us. Lord, I thank you for this time together. I pray that as we look at Christian education and the curriculum that we use for it, that your Holy Spirit will be with each person. Let us hear your voice, your ideas, and your direction in the name of Jesus. Amen. Well, tonight, this is a hangout, but I'm not actually going to be interviewing everyone. I've set up 5 cards on the YouTube, which if you're viewing on the YouTube site or elsewhere, you'll see a little icon in the upper right-hand corner. And this provides links to some information. Over the last few weeks, I've interviewed 3 of our Energion authors regarding this. Chris Freet, author of A New Look at Hospitality as a Guide to Missions, talked about how they did Christian education, Sunday school, small groups, and so on in his church. Then we had Michael Kennedy. He's the author of Parent-Driven Discipleship, talking about basically the same set of questions as I asked Chris. And then we talked with Bob LaRochelle about ecumenical Christian education. How do you reach out beyond your own denomination? And so that's the third one. All 3 of those are linked. I've also linked a page of our Energion Publications instructional material that will help you with some of the material that I'm going to talk about. It's a good place to go and browse what we offer. Energion Publications now offers over 170 titles. Nearly 60 are listed under that instructional materials category. And so when I start talking about instructional materials, it could take a bit of time. I do have the live chat active if somebody wants to ask any questions. Considering that I don't have a guest, I'm going to be kind of plowing forward. What I want to talk about tonight is our Christian education curriculum, and specifically I've subtitled it Mission and Discernment. I'm going to be switching to a PowerPoint. Actually, I'm doing it with OpenOffice Impress presentation so that I can show you some pictures of things and help direct this. I think you've probably seen enough pictures of me talking already. So I'm going to go now to that presentation, and this is not just about buying and using Energion Publications material. This is about looking at your Christian education program, asking what you need to do, and in some cases coming to the answer that you don't actually need curriculum. You may be using somebody else's curriculum. I'm going to try to be informative both about what we offer in this area, but also how you would choose it, how you'd work with it. So with this, let's go to the presentation here. As you can see, Christian education curriculum, mission and discernment, and I've scattered a few of our books there across the table and taken a picture just to give us something to start with. I will be commenting on all of those books, though, as you can imagine, with only a half-an-hour program, it is unlikely that I'm going to comment on them more than a sentence or 2 each. So let's move on with this and start as we look at the mission. I visit a lot of churches in the course of what I do, but also have visited many over the course of my life. And I've found that if you ask the first 2 or 3 people what the mission of their congregation actually is, and you don't get a coherent answer that is the same, or at least, reasonably close to the same, you're probably in a church that is having problems figuring out what it's doing. And there's an unfortunately large number of churches that are not sure of what their mission as a church is. And I mean by this, going beyond saying, okay, our mission is to carry out the gospel commission. That's fine, that's good, but what is your specific call in accomplishing that? What is this church trying to do? And at the same time, what you'll find out is when the church is not sure of what its congregational mission is, what fits with it, you're going to find a number of ministries and opportunities within the church that are scattered, often inward pointing, because somebody's saying, let's do this, let's do that, let's do the other thing, and nobody's asking the question, is this something that is going to help this congregation carry out its mission? So it's important to have direction, and that applies in particular also to your Christian education program. How are you going to educate your congregation? I know of way too many churches where the Christian education program is simply drifting. And that is, we're sure that what Christian education means is that we should meet, that we should have classes, and so on, but there's no understanding or no idea of where we're going. So you can have Sunday school classes that have been meeting for 30 years, very often with the same people for 30 years, and nothing new has been accomplished over that time. We're doing the same thing over and over again. So let's ask these questions. What are your goals? A Sunday school class or a small group or a class, if you have, say, a larger event on a Wednesday night. There's many different ways to approach this, but you need to have particular goals. Is the goal of this to study theology? Is the goal about this to look at how we can apply our Christian experience in action? That is a perfectly good activity for a small group or a Sunday school class. And then once you've determined those goals, of course, that's going to be a guide then for your answer to everything else about when are you going to meet, where are you going to meet, how long are you going to spend in meeting, what are you going to do while you're in the meeting. When you're talking about your goals, again, ask if it's focused enough. Just like I said about the mission of the church, when you say the mission of the church is to carry out the gospel commission, that's fine, but for a local congregation, there are more specific ways and places that are going to be involved in carrying that out. The same thing applies to your small group, or your small group, your class, or any other education event that you're trying to carry out. If your goals aren't focused, you're going to have a hard time designing a way to reach them. Now, this doesn't have to get very complicated, but let me just give a quick example that I've seen many groups that are meeting for, let's say, as a prayer group, but 3/4 of the time is spent in some kind of study. So if your goal is to develop your prayer life, those 45 minutes might quite bluntly be better spent in a time of listening, for example, or looking at prayer specifically, but aimed at prayer. On the other hand, I've encountered groups where the purpose was to do a particular kind of study, Bible, theology, activity, but because they developed larger and larger and larger prayer lists, the prayer time took over the study. Now, you'd say, how can you possibly be talking about them praying too much? Well, in my view, prayer goes both ways, and Bible study is actually part of your prayer and listening to God, and you need to find what it is that you're supposed to do. So then you can ask the question, will the time that you're meeting, the approach that you're taking, the medium that you're using for your study, curriculum materials work? Very important here is to realize we don't need to be stuck with the Sunday school hour and with a meeting in the church building. The Sunday school hour is actually a dying hour, and part of that is because of the time. Part of it is because of the haphazard way in which we use it. If your entire Sunday school program consists of people following denominational curriculum for year after year after year, there's a reason why you're not bringing in new people into your program. You're missing out on a lot of things. So then you also ask, of course, going back to the beginning, how does the goal of the group that you started integrate with the goals of your church? Because just because you want to be creative doesn't mean you want to lose track of what you're trying to do. And finally, I'm going to reemphasize, consider location. For many people, they would imagine that my topic on Christian education is primarily about the Sunday school hour. The Sunday school hour is merely an hour on a Sunday, and very often much less than an hour on a Sunday. I'm often invited to teach in groups where the hour turns into 45 minutes, or if it was a 45 minutes, it turns into a half an hour. And so it gets to be a question, could you please introduce us to the book of Acts? And we'll give you a half an hour in which to do it. You can only accomplish a small amount in that sort of a time. So once you've got all of that down, then you're going to ask the question about curriculum. And let's start at the bottom of this slide, just to be entertaining. Do you need curriculum? I'm going to talk about that a little bit down the road here before we're done. Is curriculum the thing that you need? There are lots of ways to do small groups that will build discipleship, that will increase people's knowledge of their faith, and more importantly, provide spiritual development that don't actually involve curriculum. But there are many values in curriculum as well. Especially in Bible study, I would really be delighted, however, even though I publish and sell Christian education biblical studies curriculum, I would be very happy to work myself out of a job in many cases, which is bringing people to the point where if they want to study a Bible book, they can start with the Bible and a variety of reference sources that they might use to bring in, and a variety of ideas, and discuss it. Some of the ways that I've seen done now, returning to the top of the slide, is simply looking for approved authors. You say, is this author a good person? Okay, well, let's use all of his or her books. It has its own set of problems. The most important one is that you can get very narrow. Let's face it, we're in the age of the internet. The people in your church are going to learn about what is taught in other denominations. I remember seeing a great discussion in Methodist blogs about a certain Bible teacher that was whose materials were being used in Methodist churches, and she is not a Methodist. And people were upset. All of this non-Methodist material is being used. Frankly, if your main problem of your church is that you have people using material from a Bible teacher from another denomination, say hallelujah and go and move forward. That's not a real problem. People are going to learn about other denominations. If you cannot counter what you think is doctrinally off in some other Christian denomination through preaching and teaching in your church, you have a much deeper problem in terms of education. And then another one that I've seen is, let's use everything from the denomination. Move in a church that I was in, a number of people said, let us not use any material that is not published, that does not have the logo of our denomination. Same problem with a little more variety in the material that you have. Again, whether you're Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian, Episcopalian, whatever you happen to be, your people are going to be learning about things about other denominations. You can't avoid it. You can't just, your curriculum, one thing that you cannot do with your Christian education program is shape everything that everybody learns. What you have to do is understand that the world is a big place, and you're going to be trying to provide some guidance for people to be better disciples, to follow Jesus better, whether that's through knowledge, practice, whatever, motivation. That's what you can provide. You can't keep them from knowing. So this is what I'm suggesting, choosing a variety. Be intentional about helping people to learn. When I was teaching youth Sunday school, we made sure that they heard, for example, from a rabbi in the local community. The imam from the local mosque came and spoke to the class and answered the young people's questions. People get worried about that sort of thing. I'm going to repeat it again. It's a big world out there. They're going to hear about this stuff. Let them hear about it in your place where you can answer questions and where you can follow up. So how is it that we can help you here from Energion Publications? A couple of months ago, I was showing our materials. You give out materials at a program called Reimagine. And at this community Reimagine, a young man walked up to my table and he said, is everything that you publish the truth? Well, let me let you in on a secret. I am not the arbiter of truth. There is nobody here at Energion Publications or really amongst our authors, our contractors, our volunteers, etc., who is the arbiter of truth. So that is not a question that we're likely to answer. I'm fairly sure that I'm wrong about some things. The best evidence I have of that is that I've changed my mind. So I was either wrong before or I'm wrong now. What we do is we try to prayerfully look at materials and provide you with things that are going to help you build your educational program. They're going to challenge you and help you learn your faith better, even when, and especially when they're material that comes from a position different than what you're used to. Now, in order to help you with this, since somebody would immediately after that, I have been asked, well, then how can I figure out whether this particular curriculum item, whether this book is going to be good for my church, whether I should use it? Here's how you can do it. Contact us by phone, email, social media. I'm going to have the links down at the end. But again, that link to our instructional materials that's in the cards for this video will include contact information, and you can contact us by phone, email, or social media. I'll probably mention this again later, but you're generally going to be talking to me or to my wife, Jody. We're the people who have edited the books. We know what's there. We're willing to listen to what it is that you want to accomplish. And then we can say, this book is not really from the theological perspective that you're looking for, or yes, it is, or this book may be more advanced than what you're looking for or more basic than what you're looking for, and we can recommend something else. We're willing to spend the time to talk to you and let you know that. And then once you've narrowed it down, if you're thinking about a small group or anything in your Christian education program, ask us for an evaluation copy. We'll do that. And so I've already covered the last line on this. Let's move forward. Talking here about a range of curriculum. I'm going to talk about Energion titles and then kind of spread out just a little bit into further ideas. Here are some of our titles. When we talk about basic or general education, I hate using these terms because people think this means it's for people who are, not that bright or something like that. I don't mean that at all. I mean it's for people who don't want to sit there and study, shall we say, systematic theology. We don't all have to want to do that. We don't all want to have to want to go and study biblical languages as I have. This is for people who are looking for something that is challenging, is going to move them on in discipleship, but is largely not going to require them to go to the dictionary. So let's give a general suggestion here. Soup Kitchen for the Soul and The Fringe, they're both by the same author, Renee Crosby, who starts from her experience of going out from the church unwillingly at first, as she'll confess, working in a soup kitchen because she had to for her educational program and learning what the church was really about. And that continues then in her fiction offering, The Fringe. But The Fringe is a fiction offering that is actually filled with facts. You have fictionalized stories, but you also have a lot of data. If your idea is, how can I help my neighbors better? These two books are going to give you a lot of specific information as well as a lot of background. So that's a part of what goes in basic or general. We have a book here, and fortunately, let me hold up. I'm going to have to go back here briefly to the screen so I can hold these books up. I'm not going to hold up all of the ones that I had, but here's Soup Kitchen for the Soul and The Fringe, and that's Renee's picture there on the front. Not on the front of The Fringe, that's another picture. Reframing Irrelevant Faith that I brought out. This is from a person who is moderately progressive in theology and is giving an outline of the Christian faith from that perspective. It has been used in a number of cases by churches as curriculum for a general view of Christianity. Okay, I think I've hit the wrong button there. Hold on just a second. There we are. Now we're going to get, okay, continuing on. I'm not going to hold all of these books up that were in the big picture I showed you. You get into serious Bible study, our participatory study series. We just released the Gospel according to Mark. There are quite a number of others from Ecclesiastes, Galatians, Philippians, Luke, and also some topical study guides. I'll get a little further on that later. Theology introductions, the series Areopagus Critical Christian Issues. These are all around 85 pages, and they're generally written at a scholarly level, although we've limited the referencing and so on to make them readable. Then we have another series, shorts, 44 pages or less. I'll talk about them in a minute. Number of theological and biblical topics. And finally, let's talk about going deeper, what I call almost academic titles, which is academic titles that are designed to be used by the serious student who isn't actually in an academic setting. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about being different. Do your study group in a creative way. So let's move on through here. Participatory study series. I already gave the example of the Gospel according to Mark. And then I'm going to hold up two other study guides here. And again, move away from my presentation and let you have the camera. Here's the Gospel according to Mark. This is just released, a little over 100 pages, about 120 pages, in lessons on that take you all the way through the Gospel according to Mark. Some very serious material, but it's presented in a way that is easy to follow. Marriage in Interesting Times. When I talk about controversial, this is by an author who accepts same-sex marriage, but who writes a guide that is intended for all of us. So there's your controversial topic. I think this is a good way to study about marriage because you can discuss all of these issues as you go through this guide. So Marriage at Interesting Times. Again, it's written at the level that can be used by the congregation in general. As we get more serious, I have Eschatology, a participatory study guide. This is for your serious students. And you say, you're going through all of these books so quickly, how are we supposed to figure out what we can use and what not? That's why we're going to have our phone number and our email up here. Call us up. You look at them in the catalog, you see some things in general and say, look, here's my group. I have a group that is interested in such and such material. And is this book going to be good? And then after that, you can have a free evaluation copy and decide for yourself once we've pointed you to the, to things that sound like the right thing. going back here to the slideshow presentation. So those are the participatory study series. There are a number of books. There's one on the Sermon on the Mount, the Fruit of the Spirit, one for interfaith marriages, Ecclesiastes, Philippians, Galatians, Luke. There's quite a variety of material, and that series is growing. Now, we have the Areopagus Critical Issues series. I'm not going to hold these up, but Ultimate Allegiance, that's a teaching on the Lord's Prayer. Again, you're talking 80, 85 pages, so it's something that you could do in, say, a couple of months or a quarter of study in your class, along with discussion. For Political Season, The Politics of Witness, the character of the church in the world. What is it that we as Christians and as a church community are supposed to be trying to accomplish in the world, as opposed to becoming part of the world and its political and social battles? In the original text, it talks about how to read commentaries when they cite the Greek text. And I might say it also will help you with listening to sermons where somebody says, well, in the original Greek, it says, well, you might need to use some discernment at that point. And then if you want to get serious, and again, showing the balance of conservative, progressive, and so on, except for fornication, the teaching of the Lord Jesus on divorce and remarriage. In the previous series, I was talking about a guide on marriage that by somebody who accepts same-sex marriage. Here we have a very conservative guide on divorce, but I will tell you that it is a very solidly argued conservative guide on divorce and remarriage. Whether you agree or not, it's challenging material. There's a lot more books in that series, but let's go on. Topical line drives, less than 44 pages, about 12,000 words. Here's some examples. A book on process theology. Most people don't think you can do that in 44 pages. The reviews of this process theology, Embracing Adventure with God by Bruce Epperly, tend to say that is false, that you really can get a window into process theology in that short of a book. Speaking of ecumenical, what Protestants need to know about Roman Catholics, and we have its companion volume, what Catholics need to know about Protestants. Jonah, When God Changes, gets us into both biblical studies and theology. What happens when God starts giving orders or doing things that you don't know? Or if you want to get on the more serious side of biblical studies, the authorship of Hebrews, the case for Paul. David Allen Black argues the issues in the authorship of Hebrews. Again, the discernment there is this the sort of thing that your group needs to study? There's only a small percentage of Christian believers and of study groups that would really need to read something like the authorship of Hebrews. And so you have, that's why you would call us up or get an evaluation copy and say, is this going to do what we need it to do? I'm going to run slightly over in order to cover. I don't want to stop in the middle of this. So I see that I only have like a minute left, and I think I've got about 5 minutes of material. Going deeper, and here again, I'm not going to hold these up, but we have a series of books on creation that is a serious study, looking at the scriptural background, the doctrinal background, and its application in modern ethics. This is an excellent study to do in a sequence to understand what it means that God is the creator. Then we have some other books here, Meditations on According to John, Meditations on the Letters of Paul. These are books that take a serious look at biblical theology, but it's written at a level that your church members who are interested in this level of study can follow. You don't have to be a Greek scholar. You don't have to have a degree in theology or anything like that. It is written at that level. And one of the cards that I have is to the list video list that I have on YouTube of my currently ongoing study about Paul, which is using Meditations on the Letters of Paul as one of the readings. The Jesus Paradigm. Again, this is, you want to look at what the church is about. This is a serious work on the topic. Again, I mentioned the Eschatology and Participatory Study Guide, and by the same author, From Inspiration to Understanding. If you really want to sit down and do a serious study on the inspiration of the Bible, there's a good place to go for it. Now, as we switch from going deeper, then let's talk about being different. Sometimes you don't need curriculum. How about building your group around a craft or activity? I'm listing knitting, sewing, art, do-it-yourself, especially if you want to have the guys groups and the women's groups. I was into electronics. How about amateur radio? We used it with missions, and it still can be. But also it can simply be the thing that brings you together, and then you have a conversation. You don't necessarily have to sit down around a book or around a table where that's the sole purpose in order to talk about Jesus. You could be that everybody sits down there with their knitting and they knit and they talk about Jesus. And come to think of it, you could be knitting things that have to do with helping your neighbor. I know of a number of projects along that line that involve knitting or sewing that can do it. And you can build this, you can integrate into this your discipleship and your growth and have a group. So a group doesn't have to be the traditional prayer group or study group. It can be a group that gets together for doing some particular thing, but at the same time, builds the discipleship. If you are looking at a book, one of those, The Soup Kitchen for the Soul, has a lot of activities and so on that you could go into, or ways in which you could impact. Then, of course, I asked the question earlier, do we need curriculum? How about going straight to the scriptures? Let's pick up the Gospel of John. Different ones of us have different study guides. We have Bible dictionaries. A couple of us may get some commentaries, and everybody studies. It's not that the teacher studies and comes and teaches, but everybody studies and you come together to discuss. Or we offer some unusual guides here. My own book, Stories of the Way, starts with short to very short stories that bring out a question or challenge you on an issue. What are you going to do next? And so you can start with one of those and then build a discussion. Fiction is often a good way to introduce a question. The little book, and I'm going to put this one on screen, a little book that we distribute and also have in ebook formats. It's called Perfectly Square. In this, we start with the world that is perfectly square and then see it develop a variety of shapes as you go through the story. And in those shapes, you can see the differences in the way some of us think. And one of the things that it can be is a way to help your church learn to communicate across those kinds of barriers. So there again, you have a very different approach to something to study, but that could be a way of building your church. Finally, let's look at this go. When we talked earlier about the Gospel Commission, we say, that's the kind of general goal that we talk about, but we have to get more specific. But there is something very specific in it. It says go. Don't get stuck in one place. Bring more people in, grow and multiply. Be inviting, even if your focus is narrow. Make sure those who might be interested can get involved. A lot of groups become ingrown. They have their own practices. They don't let anybody else in. That's a sure road to death or spiritual deterioration. Be ready to grow and move forward. Remember that whatever you're doing, whether you're studying one of those most serious theology books and you're having to discuss terms and pull out the Oxford English Dictionary, or whether you're in there with your sewing group sowing and just talking about what the Lord did for you during the week, your witness for Christ needs to remain central. And I think that we often lose by forgetting that in the process of pursuing our own goals. To talk to us at Energion, I'm going to leave this for just a minute. You're going to talk to one of us who are the owners. This is not a big company where you're going to get given to a secretary who is responding to you off of cue cards. We're the people who read the books, edited the books, decided to publish them, and we work with them on a regular basis. We're willing to talk to you. There's our business phone, 850-525-3916, our email. Find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. And if you like it, you can even mail us a letter. We're happy to talk to you about this material and help you find what works for you. We're even willing to talk to you if we don't end up selling you anything. Our mission here is to make Christian education better in order to fulfill the Gospel Commission. Thanks for being with me tonight. I apologize for running about 7 minutes over, but I didn't figure I wanted to split this and do it in 2 weeks. We'll see you again. I'll be on my own YouTube channel with the continuation of Perspectives on Paul. There's a link to the list, to the playlist here on is one of the cards on this. And then next Tuesday night, we'll be meeting again. I don't have the final confirmation, but I believe that I'll be talking with Dr. Alan Bevere about the Wesley Covenant Association in the United Methodist Church. So we'll see you Thursday night next week.